Banjo Tooie for the Nintendo 64, also on Xbox Live Arcade. For the longest time, people had always made Banjo Tooie seem like a terribly long task, difficult to navigate and hard to complete. Once I started the game, I too felt overwhelmed by the size of it all, and just how much stuff there was to collect. Of course, once I was in the thick of it, the fun took over and I enjoyed exploring new locations and backtracking to figure out new things. More often than not, I would pass by a collectible, out of reach with no clue how to get it, and most of the time I just assumed backtracking was needed. However, the more I played, the more I solved these puzzles in the back of my mind, and the revelations were a joy in themselves. Of course, that doesn't mean there weren't points where I was freaking clueless, and chances are it had to do with ledges or grenades, or to clarify, grenade eggs. But more often than not, I could figure stuff out. In many ways, Tooie is more adventure-oriented than Kazooie was. And everything is far more connected, and collecting jiggies is a bit of a slow burn process this time. I honestly can't pick between the two, since they both felt rather different without being necessarily better or worse. What I do personally think is better in this game, though, is the visuals. There's a little bit more polish, and the designs are a little more interesting, with less cliché-level ideas and themes. The music is certainly on par with the first game. However, it's not quite as iconic as the first game was. And I think it's the kind of soundtrack I'll remember more for the feel, rather than any individual tune. As for story, well, I don't think anyone is playing this game for story per se, but the writing is rather clever still, and the characters are excellent. It has even more charm than the first, although I miss Grunty and her rhymes. This game's humour still holds up well, and can even be a little morbid at times, which makes some sense since Conker was around a similar time period. It feels like there was plenty of love put into this game. Gameplay is pretty amazing, taking Banjo-Kazooie's controls and adding plenty of new items and abilities. It expands the ideas without heavily altering the formula. Outside of the more open approach to the game, the core gameplay feels pretty much the same. Collect items and get stuff to feel heavy amounts of satisfaction. Of course, as a negative, I have to mention that this game has far too many minigames for its own good. Most of them are shooting based, which isn't a bad thing since they control better than GoldenEye. However, what is a bad thing is button mashing minigames. Button mashing minigames in single-player titles was one of the biggest problems in the 90s and early 2000s. Pretty much flipping the bird to the player's skill with the core gameplay, and asking them to press buttons at often absurd degrees. Hell, fucking motion waggle was less frustrating than these tacked-on button mashes. Banjo Tooie is a reminder of why we left this shit in the past where it belongs. What I'm talking about is Canary Mary, the character whose AI cheats when you race her in a button-mashing minigame. Typically it's not much of an issue since her first 3 challenges are a cakewalk. The final one though is a pain in the fucking ass. And I salute anyone who can pull this shit off on an Xbox 360 controller, since I sure as hell can't. Canary Mary still holds that last damn Cheeto page, and pretty much cock-blocked the 100% run-through I had going. If we ignore Canary Mary though, Banjo Tooie is an excellent game, and a worthy purchase for those with a 360 or a functioning Nintendo 64. Perhaps I didn't go into super depth about my favourite parts, but I kind of believe it's a little redundant, since you should probably play Kazooie before Tooie, and I want you to experience this game's magic firsthand. Just do yourself a favor and don't try for 100% unless you have a good workaround for the Canary Mary minigame, or have a thing for pain. A 99% playthrough though, on the other hand, is very doable and probably the best way to play the game, ignoring Canary Mary. Yeah, still not happy about that. Still not happy about Canary Mary. Anyway, that's my quick video review for Banjo Tooie. Bit of a rant in places, but I hope you enjoyed this, or found it interesting to some degree, and I'll see you for the next video review. Bye.